What comes to our mind when we think of the solar system? What do the words solar and system even mean here? Solar means relating to or determined by the sun. And system? System means a set of things working together as a part of a mechanism. When we put these two definitions together, what do we get? We get the set of things working together as part of a mechanism determined by the sun, which, in other words, is the solar system. So what are these things that work together? I think we mentioned in our past video about the space being occupied by celestial objects like planets, meteors, meteorites, asteroids, and stars like the sun itself. These celestial objects orbit around the sun. Why do you think that is the case? This is due to the gravitational attraction between the sun and the objects. But here's another question. Why is it that these objects orbit around the sun and not the other way around? Can you guess why? If you remember our lesson on gravity, it is the light mass objects that are attracted to large mass objects. The sun, being the largest mass object in the system, attracts the other objects, which are of small mass compared to the sun, which is why they orbit around it. Let's learn more about a certain group of these celestial objects that are called planets. Now, how do we identify a planet? Is it different from other celestial bodies like the stars? If so, what are the differences? Planets actually have the same appearance as stars, but the factor that differentiates them from each other is that planets do not emit light of their own, while stars produce their own light. They also do not twinkle like stars do. Do planets travel in a specified path? Yes, planets orbit around the sun, each with its different paths, but in the same circular motion. Speaking of orbit, how do you measure the time taken for a planet to complete one revolution around the sun? It is called a period of revolution. The more distant a planet is from the sun, more will be the period of revolution. In other words, distant planets take more time to complete a revolution, while the closer one takes less time to complete it. It's kind of obvious because the circumference will be much more as the radius is more. Planets also rotate along their axis. We can also measure the time taken for a planet to complete one rotation. Can you guess what this measurement is called? That's right. We call it the period of rotation. The time taken to complete one rotation is called a period of rotation. Now that we know what planets are and how they are distinguished from other celestial bodies, how many planets are there in the solar system and what are they called? There are officially 8 planets in the solar system: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Earlier, kids grew up learning about 9 planets in the solar system. But in 2006, the International Astronomical Union ultimately decided to call Pluto a dwarf planet, reducing the list of real planets to 8. These planets have their own moon, just like how we have our own moon, except some have more than one. Speaking of the moon, did you know that the moon is actually a satellite? You're probably thinking, how can moon be a satellite? Like, is it transmitting signals to our TV and radio? No, it's nothing of that sort. You're thinking about artificial satellites. We'll talk about that in another lesson. But again, the moon is not that kind of satellite. Let's see what it means then. A satellite is a celestial body revolving around another celestial body. Since the moon is traveling around the Earth, we consider the moon to be a satellite of our Earth. Let me ask you a question now. Is the Earth a satellite to the sun? If your answer is yes, then you're right. Since the Earth revolves around the sun, the Earth is a satellite to the sun. We shall now cover the different types of planets in the next lesson.